he just got his mojo back.
Anthony Albanese ahead of Scott Morrison, 40 votes to 35.
Yeah, baby, yeah!
Then, the COVID-positive plot twist.
Anthony's pretty philosophical about it. I went through the same thing a few months ago and I gave him a few tips about what helped me get through.
Well, I've had better days, but a lot of people have had it a lot worse.
And
the show must go on.
While the opposition leader goes virtual, senior Labor front benches are being deployed.
I bring apologies from Anthony. He would have loved the discussion about the railway tracks.
The boss has got the bug, so you got me.
You've come in today and you've been comfortable, nuanced and on message. Are you not the Labor leader that many people have been looking for?
Oh, behave.
Short answer is Anthony Albanese is the leader that this country desperately needs.
And while Albo is holed up in ISO for the next week, the PM has been busier than ever.
Another important task that we're engaged in is increasing the size of our defence forces.
The government's still under fire over its failure to stop the controversial security pact between China and the Solomon Islands.
When did you last chat on the phone to the Solomon Islands Prime Minister?
On the Solomon Islands.
What are you going to do to prevent China getting a stranglehold in our Pacific region?
And this is an epic fail when it comes to foreign policy. Get on a plane. What happened instead? The Foreign Minister went to a business function and some bloke called Zed got sent there.
But in Albanese's absence, Morrison turned the heat onto Labor's deputy leader.
Richard Marles wrote last year that Australia should not be resisting Pacific Island nations entering into these types of agreements. I mean, it doesn't get more blunt than that. The point here is this: Australia needs to earn the right to be the natural partner of choice.
So as the PM takes fire and the opposition leader hunkers down, are both parties getting a little nervous?
No. Danger's my middle name.
And it's Friday night, so as usual, we caught up with Coalition Senator Bridget McKenzie and Labor Senator Katy Gallagher.
Bridget, be honest, when you heard the news Albanese was going to be out of action for 7 days, was there a tiny part of you that was like, yes?
No, of course not. I've had COVID, and you know, you can get it really badly. So I wish Anthony Albanese a swift recovery. Obviously, being locked up in your house for 7 days can be challenging, but he seems to be making use of his time. But I think Albo being locked up for 7 days means the rest of the team's going to have to do a lot of that heavy lifting. And Katy, you were having to mop up after Albo last week. Are you going to have to mop up after Marles this week?
Oh, says Bridget, who's got the deputy old mate Barnes in witness protection. Every time he pops up, you guys have to come out and cover and send him back into hiding. Look, you'll see more of a whole range of our team, talented, united and ready to go, and we'll be there, you know, making sure Albo can have a bit of rest and recover. I think you'll find it very hard to have 7 days locked up, but it's important he rests. Anyone who's had COVID or cared for someone with COVID knows, you know, it's not a joke. We do need to look after each other, even if in this hard world of politics during a campaign.
Well, Katy, the campaign continues and you've actually been trashing the government on China and the Solomon Islands. But is it really the government's fault here?
Well, this has happened on their watch. You know, it hasn't been a secret. We know that the government has known about this for months, and it seems to me it's another example of failing to take responsibility, failing to act. I don't think the relationship obviously hasn't been strong enough between this government and the Pacific Island countries, and we're suffering because of that now. But this is definitely, you know, firmly at the Morrison government's feet. This has happened on their watch. They knew about it and they weren't able to intervene successfully, it seems.
Bridget, this is one of the government's key platforms. You're supposed to be all over national security and borders. Doesn't this completely undermine that key platform for you?
Not at all, Lisa. Obviously, we as a country are deeply disappointed by the decision of a sovereign nation, the Solomon Islands, to enter into this agreement with China. So Sogavare has made this decision as Prime Minister, as he is right to do. We've expressed concern. We are buoyed by his very public comments that, you know, the security partner of choice for the Solomon Islands is Australia, and that he has committed that, you know, the Solomon Islands will not be a military base for a foreign power. We have known that the challenging situation in our region has been growing over time. It's why we're making record investments into defence that you would have seen in the latest budget. It's why we're entering significant partnerships such as the AUKUS partnership. It wasn't just about submarines. So we're working with our Pacific Island family, with New Zealand, with the United States and Britain, indeed, to ensure that the whole region is confident that this move by China won't result in military bases being set up on the Solomon Islands.
But Australia's never going to be able to counter China's influence just through military spending. Was it a mistake to cut the headcount for our foreign services, DFAT, Bridget?
Well, I think we've got a range of partnership agreements right across the Pacific that range from our highly successful seasonal worker and Pacific Islander worker scheme where...
Hang on a second, Bridget. We haven't got all night. That's not the question I asked you. It was it a mistake to cut the DFAT headcount? That's our ambassadors, diplomats, analysts that help us actually maintain those good relationships.
Well, we have a very good relationship with the Pacific Island nations, particularly the Solomon Islands, and you will have heard the Prime Minister today articulate the regular contact, both person to person, but obviously during COVID, over the phone and on Zoom meetings, regular contact, significant and embedded contact between our nation, our officials. I mean, we sent our intelligence officials over to the Solomon Islands to brief them prior to the signing of this agreement. So we are deeply embedded and engaged with our Pacific
if the relationship is that good, Minister, why are the Solomons choosing China over us?
Well, that's a decision for the Solomon Islands, and are we seriously, as Albo made, commentary about that we should have intervened, literally intervened, to stop a sovereign nation state making a decision.
Well,
now that
Bridget,
to me
we should have had
smacks of colonialism, and we have worked very hard over many years to ensure that these nation states, small as they are empowered to make their own decisions, and we should respect those decisions.
But the problem there is, Bridget, I mean, the reality is you've cut foreign aid to the region. There's been significant cuts to foreign aid, and you haven't taken climate action seriously, which is the Pacific Islands nations, one of their top issues. You had senior members of your government, including the Prime Minister at the time, laughing, well, he was Treasurer, I think, laughing about the water lapping at the shores of these countries that are so significantly affected by climate. And all of that matters. It means that these countries are turning away from Australia because we haven't been there and we haven't built the relationship. And that's resulted in what we've seen with this security pact with China. It's clearly shown they've looked to China rather than listen to us.
Katie, if you're suggesting that our country's decision and action on climate change is why the Solomon Islands have entered this agreement,
no,
I think you're severely missing the point. Because
no,
if it was, they wouldn't be signing an agreement with the world's largest emitter.
No,
it
I'm
is a false argument that you're peddling there.
The relationship between the Australian government and Pacific Island nations has been neglected, particularly on the issues that they feel most strongly about, and they have turned away. Well, I mean, we've seen the result of this in this security pact.
That's not true.
I mean, it is the Pacific step up, the Pacific stuff up. That's the reality of what we've seen in the last week.
That's Labor's line, and it's a cheap line on a very delicate and highly complex area of policy, being international relations. It's an adolescent approach by an opposition who is not up for the tough challenges ahead in our region and in the globe more generally. If you're going to distill a complex issue such as this to a one-line grab.
Now, Bobcat has got a solution for our security worries. A giant missile fortress wall around Australia with 5 million rifles behind it. Bridget, will you adopt this policy?
Now, I'm no stranger to a firearm, as you and your viewers will know. It's a sport that I really enjoy. Participated in lawfully, of course, but no, I think Bob's got it wrong on this. We made significant investments into our fabulous ADF at the budget, both in cybersecurity and in additional personnel to assist us with these global challenges, and we think that'll do the job.
Katie, how many rifles will Labor commit?
Well, I'm always up for a chat with
the rifle
Bob.
index.
He's and his range of ideas. There are often many of them, and they're quite often colourful. And I think this is probably one of those. But he's an entertaining guy. But I don't think this would form part of our policy going forward. But he's always open to other ideas as well, Bob, in my experience. So,
Bridget, Katie, good to chat to you as always. We'll let you go and have your Friday afternoon Chardonnay.
Our Cardi. Yep. See ya.
See ya.